Hi friends of Taiwan, this is Luca Cinalli here and I'm welcoming you to Twinings Grand Prix 2022. The topic of this year for Twinings Grand Prix 2022 is a midsummer Twinings night. A layer of complexity in a love story, ambience on the summertime. Inspiring from this topic, I use ingredients which they really combine the storytelling. So from vanilla to chocolate for the sweetness, from the spicy from ginger and mango, rambutan, red rice. So all these ingredients I got inspired from the love story. Let's see and discover them together. It will be very simple. I definitely base anything I do on classic theories. Why classics? Because it's the most unstructured. When we look for ingredients, we always look as individual, how they work. I will start to show you today the first recipe, which is based with our chamomile. So when I look for individual ingredients, I first going to analyze what's inside as a base and the main base and why and what. So talking about chamomile, I always feel it has very delicate sweetness with a little bit of bee pollen and honey into it. So combine this beautiful blend of chamomile of Twinings, I combine some structure between saltiness and sweetness because I believe the honey and the sweetness of the chamomile works very well with saltiness. So following our recipe, I worked with some saltiness inside. We will be adding a miso, which is a salty ingredient which works very well with sweet and salty textures. In this case, our miso is being worked out with egg white and yolk and sugar. So I made it a richer taste between salty and sweet. So next to our chamomile blend, we're gonna add our miso mix. Next to it, we work extremely with seasonality. So we are not far from, we still actually on the pollen. So there is many plants that are blossoming. So something very close to honey and the best pollen to combine with honey, it's a pine pollen. So what I did here, I did our mocktail based pine cordial. So basically very simple, harvesting green pine full of pollen. So I just infuse it in coconut water and that's what we get our pine pollen cordial. And as a fourth ingredient, we needed to have something very good playing with color, and second, a little bit extra saltiness because miso won't be enough. Just combine chamomile and pine, miso won't have enough saltiness. So I'm combining some very healthy, very unique texture. So it's in powder, it's a spirulina. Could have been done blue, could have been done green. I choose green because he's matching also the color of our pine. Blue spirulina, it's an algae, so it's a seaweed style, and eventually will add a little bit more of saltiness to our drink. I dedicate this drink to the spirulina ingredients. So I looked where the best spirulina is produced, where the best spirulina is known, and actually it's a tropical island. So I called after that Kona. So we will see how our Kona drinks will be made. To make it an easier approach, because so now I share with you our way how to build it. We're still a bartender, we still have to produce. So I want to share with you some technical aspect. So when we have so many ingredients, it's not the easiest to combine them. It's not the easiest to combine them à la minute, so if a guest order them. So what I suggest you is you can pre-batch. When I say pre-batch, so you will see I'm going to have a pre-batch ingredient. So the chamomile from Twinings, the miso, the spirulina, and the pine cordial, it's all been pre-batched. Very simple reason. Some flavors, they need time to combine together. So I pre-batch everything, I let it stay for 24 hours, and then I simply strain with a bag, with a very fine cloth bag. So we don't want to remove the texture of miso because we've been working very hard to receive our miso mix, but we want to keep the light texture. We don't want to ferment it, we don't want to to create layers or heavy layers, so it's a simply pre-batch, simply filter. So we will produce one together. So first of all, let's think technically on the technique as well. So I'm going to use a 2-piece shaker because I will be throwing. So I believe shaking will introduce a huge amount of water, and then we will change the texture of the drink because we're going to cool it down too much. If I'm going to be stirring, the texture won't be mixed very well. So we need a little bit of air, a little bit of water through dilution, a little bit of throwing. So we will do throwing technique. So we're adding some ice to our shaker. We make sure it's nice and chilled, and we're going to pour a good portion to our mixing glass. Then we will make sure there is no water in our shaker, and we will be pour over on the other half of our 2-piece tin, strainer inside, and we're just gonna simply throwing. By using this technique, there is air, so we give oxygen to our drink, so we open flavors, plus ice is slowly giving some water, and that's our dilution needed. Very, very simple, okay? As a single drink, I don't usually throw more than 6-7 times. I will be pouring to the container without ice because we will be spending a couple minutes for our glassware. Okay. So as every year, we always want to design a glassware because for our job it's very important how we present. Not every time has to be only a garnish, but every time has to be a meaning behind. I do learn the job every day to our guests. So there are a few simple steps we need to approach. So first of all, if a drink is over complicated on serve, maybe we can have a rejection. So for this, for our Kona drink, we opt to design a very simple glass. No corners, very simple, stylish, a little bit on V-shape. So I was opting between a martini or a V-shaped glassware, but with no stem, so nice seated on the table. Second, when there is a little bit texture, sometimes if the drink is seated on the bar or on the table and the guest is not drinking very fast, but it takes his time, it takes her time, the drink can split. If the drink split, that means it might gonna look a little bit ugly. So I created a serve which helps our guests to keep mixing the drink on their own. So we will see this step together. So I create very simple glassware, and I create a structure for that. So we're gonna have a base, we're gonna have a plate, and we're gonna have an handle. What we have to be careful now, there is something we needed to pre-done, and which is very important to our bars. It's ice program. You want to have a pieces of ice already pre-cut it and measured to your glassware. So you see here, they're already pre-cut, they've been dry, and I usually wrap it up in a paper so it stays nice and dry, and it's super fast to unwrap it during the service. Because what happens sometimes, you have your ice, but once, if they melt, or if the fridge drops the temperature, they stick together, and then all our work will be destroyed. So it's important to, what we do, it keeps nice and well, and we keep our speediness up to the game. So I'll be choosing the best one for today. You see there is a different sides because we could have a different glass. In this case, we design our glass, so I'm choosing 3 different ones, and I'll be choosing a size which is very suitable for our glass. One thing you noticed is there is a little bit of spear here because I'll show you at the final detail, but that is going to help us to spin and mix our drink. So what you have to do in advance is basically to drill a hole to our ice cube. So what we do usually, and what I would use, a drill. So it's a very simple an ice cube, but by using the drill, I just drill a hole to the ice cube from the top to the bottom. So eventually we'll just go straight inside. So what will be our next step is to add cover, and we're just going to screw in our handle. As simple as you get. So what we're creating now, it's our guests, they're gonna have an ice cube spinning inside of the drink, so they can mix on themselves too, okay? So even technically for us, what we do is mixing, pour it over, and then the guests, they can feel like it to mix it as they wish, anytime they want. Now there is a little gap here for two reasons. First of all, to pour the drink in as big as possible. A quarter is a perfect size because it's still shaped on the glass and it's possible to sip it. So it's big enough to have a gap for our mouth. But I also believe there is a little hole here. So if we do have an option, if the customer want to choose to have a straw, also a straw option is in the drink. Okay? And that's our first creation, the Kona mocktail. Enjoy! I will show you our next recipe. It's the mocktail has been designed around the tea serves. In this case, I used as a base the Darjeeling 2 Seasons. So the Darjeeling 2 Seasons, it's extremely easy tea, but at the same time, the 2 Seasons, it makes a very individual characteristic inside. I want to explain one thing when I create recipe. It's a very simple. I study the base, I study what's the main flavors and how to extract them, how to announce them. So when I was looking for the Twinings 2 Seasons Darjeelings, the 2 Seasons give them two distinctive flavors. So the first season, it gets a little bit of fresh and dry taste and aroma. And the second season of harvesting the tea, it gets a little bit floral taste. So when I was combining those two aspects, I start to think, what's our seasonality, what's my roots? So I always play a lot of puzzling before I come up with the final recipe. Taste. So when I taste the final ingredients, that will be the final judgment. But when I think, it's going to be so many options on the recipe. But I always think how to work around the main ingredient, the main base, how to announce what's already inside to make it bigger and bigger and bigger, intense aroma and taste for our guests. So what I combined for dry and fresh, so tomato water. Very simple process. So for our technical aspect, it's very simple. I just blended tomato with a little bit of salt and coconut water. So I wanted to keep a little bit of sweetness with the tomato. Tomato has already a little bit of acidity and dryness as well. So the coconut water blended with tomato and simply strained with a paper filter. So with our 2 Seasons Darjeeling, we combine our clear tomato water, and then because of the second season, which is very floral type of leaves, I combined aroma. So in this case, essential oil of rose and sandalwood. So that is going to pop up just on our nose, so our guest is going to have an intense flavor, dryness, fresh and floral. Tomato water will help the dryness and freshness. The aroma of the second harvesting, the second season, will be helped from rose and sandalwood. Okay, so we will get very simple eyeball, bigger measure, because I will make some infusion inside. So what I create this year, it's actually I create a personalized strainer the guest is gonna get with the drink. So very simple, the strainer will go in the glass, but in one side we're gonna leave something in infusion. So what we will have a la minute infused ingredients. So every time there is a seasonality, and because of the season, I always try to understand where I am, what I can use, what's the best ingredients. So I will be adding calamansi. So it's a citrus. Leaves, it's still green, so green is very good for aroma. So calamansi, very small citrus. It's between a mandarin, lime, and little bit lemon all together. I'm gonna combine mint, okay? So fresh mint, helping mint, lemon verbena, and then I'm combining some leaves, which is the dryness part. in this case orange leaves as well. So they will be all put it together. And that's how it is. Now, because the two Darjeeling, and especially now it's our Jubilee in London, I added an extra garnish. I add one something which is an icon to London, and so I put a big band. It's 3D metal design, so eventually our guest is gonna have the infusion in one side, filter, so no of the freshness comes in the drink, so you won't have it in your teeth or something, and plus a little garnish already inside the drink. There is one thing I was studying very carefully, which is I try to pay a lot of attention and details: temperature. So you will see me in this case not adding no technique at all, because I believe the texture of the aroma and the dryness of the tomato won't work if it's too cold. So by adding technique, we will cold our drink. So I kept our drink around 68 degrees, which is a temperature usually we're serving a normal beverage. So for that reason, our only thing to do it is just to pour it inside of our drink. Will get infused, and slowly the guest will have the extra flavors, but not in an aggressive temperature. You see the tomato when I'm pouring, it gives a little bit frothiness because it has a texture through the coconut water which I blended before. I call this recipe Elizabeth because dedicated to the Big Ben, but Big Ben it's a nickname. Eventually the original name for Big Ben, it could be Clock Tower, or renamed for a past Jubilee, Elizabeth Tower. So I named our next recipe based on 2-season Darjeeling Elizabeth. Enjoy! Our next recipe, we will be using our mango ginger. It's very simple, but at the same time it has its own complexity. Mango gives a beautiful layer of sweetness, ginger of spiciness, everything blended with a beautiful green teas. When I was going to match ingredients for this particular tea, I really needed to announce both characteristics, the sweetness and the spiciness. Saying that, it's very important for us guys, when we mixing, we accept the challenge. I wanted to keep originality with really announcing again the two key ingredients. So with our mango and ginger, I placed an ingredient possibly not the most common, but quite unique. It's called olivello, or mainly common name as sea buckthorn. So eventually it's a really little berry, usually comes orange or yellow, depends on the season. Some countries also has it a red color, but all the countries has it. So the sea buckthorn, it's extremely sour with a little bit of spiciness. Also might remind you the sourness on its own, but the spiciness might remind you a little bit of turmeric. So again, I choose this ingredient as a key point for color, so it's going to add an extra layer of color, and then the acidity missing on our tea blend, on the mango and ginger, and helps the spiciness. I wanted to make it a little bit more unique, so nowadays I really feel the diversity we can really propose to our guests. So our next ingredients matching to our mango ginger and our sea buckthorn, it's eventually a little bit less known, by his common ingredient is a bittersweet non-alcoholic drink. So when we're talking about bitter, it's not just a bitter taste, but it's a complex of spiciness. In this case, that specific ingredient, he has a complexity of spiciness like ginger, turmeric, galangal. So they're all pretty much ingredients that will match our ginger. And the sweetness missing on our first two ingredients, the tea and the sea buckthorn. So our bittersweet aperitif is going to be another one. Something else I wanted to play a little bit, and I thought it was a good ingredient. It's corn because of sweetness, so we needed to another layer of sweetness and a little spiciness. I also use purple corn. It gives a little bit more darker color, so it balances our color. Otherwise it would be extremely too orange, but I balance with a little bit of purple color. Now there is also something in every single mocktail. We design our own serve. So first of all, let's see together how we make our mocktail. In this case, the name is pretty simple. I got inspired from the sea buckthorn, which an Italian name is Olivello. So our drink name is Olivello. So we will, the drink has its own simplicity and complexity. The only little texture what we have, but we only using 8 grams inside, so eventually texture is very little. But for that reason, we will stir the drink. So we're gonna be adding cubes to our mixing glass. Let's not forget it's quite important to chill our equipment if we don't have already in our fridge or freezers. So I'm just giving a little temperature to our mixing glass, ages of the ice away, so that's it's transforming in water. So we achieved our temperature, we will discard the water, and something what I really advise to re-add some ice. The ice which we are re-adding, it's not easily melting because our vessel, our mixing glass is already chilled. So as I do like to use a technique, I usually try to let macerate the ingredients together. So from our mango ginger twinings to our oliverillo, sea buckthorn, our bitter sweet aperitivo, and of course because purple corn, it's drier, I needed to have a little infusion. I let it rest, so macerate for 24 hours in a little bit higher temperature, 45 degrees. So I wanted to have not hot, a little bit warmer, so the at least color and in taste it could be extracted from our purple corn. So I'll be pouring a good measure. We are mixing with an ingredient which is tea, and tea is made or extract with water. So what we need to do right now with our technique is just to refresh, just to chill it very, very quick. Okay, so my stirring point is less than 20 turns usually. So as any serves, I really want to play diversity. In this case, our diversity is I want to pour it inside a bottle. It's very important to understand when anything we do, if we do, there is for a reason. There is because we design a purpose behind. So in this case, why I wanted to serve it in a bottle, because I specifically designed a glass, again with a tea of twinings inside. So rather than serve the drinks completely clear or in a way it's transparent enough to see the tea inside, I wanted to serve a bottle on the side. Now technically for us, it's once we chill our drink and it's in the bottle, we want also the bottle to keep as cold as possible. So along our glass or something, for our bottle serve, I designed a specific vessel. So I choose a cork-based container because it's reusable, it's sustainable, it's friendly, it's eco-friendly material. So I wanted to use a cork. So for that reason, I played a sponge. So you'll see I'm gonna play a sponge under, because to keep our bottle nice and chilled, I also designed a sort of ice cooler. Okay, so it's very important if we do have a nice program, we work precisely and easy and efficient. So for this one, I eventually use a drill, which I'll be showing in 1 second. So technically what we want to do, we don't want the ice to be completely melted on the table. We want the ice to be there chill our bottle, but also our sponge will absorb the melting drops of ice. So you see, our ice is just sitting on the sponge, and our bottle will be nicely chilled around our ice. Now, I did explain a few times, but to make it, our ice, let's say cylinder, our ice ring is very simple. I won't do it now. I just try to replicate it to demonstrate as easy as possible. So, piece of ice, understandable size. When I say understandable size, the right width, the right measurement. When I say the right measurement of square, because when I'm going to work with a drill which has a certain of beat, which I won't do it now, but I just want to show you, when I'm going to place in the middle, we need to have enough gap to make sure when we drill, it doesn't break on the side. So a diameter 15 by 15, it's good enough for us to place a hole in our ice piece, and then with a knife, then slowly, with the right time, cutting to receive your nice ice ring. So that's on the side. So it's extremely important. It's for our guests to keep our bottle nice and cold, and then the main purpose of our olivello is because I really wanted to showcase our glass with the T-twining, so the customer also can put it on his self. Another thing is there is a little purple dots on the bottle. That is being done from a purple dust, so it's a wax eventually. So eventually it's just normal wax, but once we finish our extraction of our recipe, olivello recipe, so I turn the purple corn in dust, and then I mix it in our wax. And from our wax, I just do a little dots on the bottle. Please enjoy our olivello. It's now time to talk about one of my favorites. It's the golden caramel rooibos. It's extremely one of my favorites because caramel, and then what's the ingredients can be combined around the caramel, especially in this case the rooibos. It's absolutely enormous. Many combination, many creativity. So now we're gonna see how I combine the golden caramel rooibos with the latest recipe for 2022. When I was looking on the golden caramel rooibos, also it's been used in other ideas, can be food ideas, but when it comes for mocktails, I really want to introduce a different layer this year. So let's analyze my creation of this year. So first of all, with this beautiful blend and aroma, I wanted to introduce a little texture and color on the same time. I'm very keen to, so this is on a technical aspect I'm sharing with you guys. I'm very keen on color and attention to aroma and color because it's the first thing guests they see without even taste. So visual and aroma, it's visual because when it comes to the table or to the bar, so when we serve, and aroma because it will be first nose aroma before taste. So it's extremely important. I really pay a lot of attention on that. So combined our golden caramel rooibos, I went for rice. Between many rices, I went for a beautiful color. This is red rice. So that means the way how they work the red rice, it gives the shell outside, which gives you a good color when it's cooking. So I do not use the rice. I use only the water when the rice is being cooked. So eventually it's just water, pinch of salt, because we don't want to have a natural taste, but we want to have a nice body taste. So it's water, red rice, pinch of salt, cooked. I do not overcook. I do not cook at the exact point. I lower cook a little bit. The rice, I will use it for extra ingredients for other preparation. But in this case, I don't want the rice to soak all the water. So I want the rice to keep the water. So I stop half cooking. So water, pinch of salt, red rice, cooking for about 15-20 minutes. The water left over, I just use in our recipe. So combining first ingredients, combined to our golden caramel rooibos, it's red rice, water in this case. I wanted fruitness. I also wanted some sweetness as well. I haven't had any sweetness. I wanted to use an ingredient which is sweet enough. So in this case, some tropical fruits. It's a rambutan, family of lychee, little bit more sugary, I would say so. So I use rambutan juice. Just blend it. Because rice, it's already a thicker a texture, I didn't want to add an extra texture, so I just filter. Very simple pepper filter, it drips very fast. So eventually I just buy rambutan, I centrifuge, and I add a little bit more water. By centrifuge, it's very rich, tasty puree. Little bit of water, so 1/3 of the rambutan portion, and then I filter with a paper filter. So that. Something else which is going to be visual and a little bit on nose, I wanted to add eye effect on the serve. So I'll be dropping, so it's not inside, I'll be dropping a vanilla olive oil. So very simple olive oil. You want to choose the best as you can. You don't want to choose an olive oil which is very aggressive on the nose. Choose a very medium body olive oil, and I just left it inside our vanilla pods. So we have a very sweet vanilla olive oil that is going to be used as a float, so it's going to be a very high visual effect. Getting close to the drink, definitely vanilla flavors, but it's not a main purpose, it's visual mainly. So our vanilla. We named our drink Cortez because Cortez, Hernan Cortez, he should be the first discoverer to bring vanilla and cacao back in Europe. So we named the recipe after him. So once again, same process. In this case, there is a little texture, so I'm changing my vessel. It's not stirring like before. It's not throwing, it will be shaken. Eventually, don't forget, we extract our golden caramel rooibos with water, so there is already water on our drink. Red rice gives us texture, rambutan sweetness, so really what we are looking for is to give a little bit air. So I'll be shaking because red rice, it's a texture, but very quick shake, so I want a little bit dilution temperature on the shaking process. I want to introduce something else in this case, another layer. So for this serve, I think the caramel rooibos really has a little bit chocolatey flavor. So in this case, I create a vessel to hold our recipe. So the three ingredients, the golden caramel rooibos, red rice, and rambutan, it's being kept in a container of chocolate. So this is made of chocolate, and our mocktail is just inside. So for a few things, it's visual on our bar counter or it's visual on our display because I'm taking recipe right of our chocolate container. So this is made of chocolate and our recipe, it's resting in a chocolate. Now, let's be attentive on the details. It's not aging, it's resting in chocolate. So the longer we rest, the longer it gets chocolate. We don't want too long, so I keep up to 2 days, 48 hours. And then I change it, then I bottle it and put a new recipe. So eventually, if you ask me how did I make it, I just create a mold, enough. Shaped as a barrel, we can shape as many shapes as we want, but the easiest to produce, to have it, to store it in our fridges, I choose a barrel in this year. So eventually it's now food-proof silicone, just made it with a real barrel and then cut it in half, get the silicone. So the way how we do, we put tapes, we seal it, we fill up with chocolate, so completely full. In about 40 minutes in a freezer, I just empty out, so the middle part is empty and the external part is thick enough to hold our recipe. Our Cortez mocktail, it's eventually kept in a chocolate barrel. So I share some tips of internal topics, functionality. Our part of the shaker, it's cold. Now because I'm shaking, I'm pouring over ice, which is previously strained, and I'm adding extra ice. And we're going to give a very quick shake. Perfect. Well, the red rice and rambutan gives a really nice foam, so it's perfect to our drink. Now, we wanted to keep, as it might look complex, I really wanted for our caramel rooibos serve to have a combine between plate and a drink. So I rethink as a cup, as a glass, and I just wide it up. So this is a glass, silver coated, so it might look like a plate, but eventually it's a cup just opened a little bit. So eventually our drink is going to be all there. Now we need an ice cube. So in previous ice preparation we did some serves. So when it comes to ice work, it's very important to see what we have left over. For another preparation we had some leftover, so eventually I'm just gonna have a very simple ice round it. So I was also thinking to have something nicely shaped and sit in the middle. So eventually our nice round just sit there in the middle. I choose the length and how tall it would be because I want the drink to be slightly covered. Okay. Now I definitely took some inspiration from maybe food pairing or something. So in this case I really wanted to give an extra garnish to our guests. So this is a sponge cake, a very simple white sponge cake, because by the time the sponge cake will be seated on ice, it will be soaked from the drink. So eventually the guests can also have the garnish flavored from our mock cocktail. Now I wanted to give also some aroma. So I will burn slightly. Even if you want to do a very simple process of burning, I usually use these tools because I'm just slightly cover one side and becomes as a garnish as well. So it's very important to, in a simple way, try always to get some details out of it. Now, I wanted to have an aroma which works very well with the rambutan because of the sweet part, but also with red rice. So I'm going to use some powder. I'm going to have a stencil just sitting on top of our sponge, and just by dusting some, in this case, paprika, I'm just going to adding this spicy sweet aroma, which usually paprika or the spice powder, they works quite well with caramel flavor, in this case golden rooibos. So by sitting on ice, eventually it's pushing the ice slightly under. I poured the mocktail, the cortez, slightly over, so now our sponge cake is soaking our mocktail, the cortez. This is our cortez. One final touch, as I think I'm in between of a mocktail and then possibly a food pairing idea. I also designed a new spoon straw. So that is gonna help. So when I say spoon straw, it has a hole. So eventually you can drink your drink easily if you don't want to drink from one side, but you can also scoop out your soft sponge cake. And that's just going to be on the side. Please enjoy our cortez mocktail. So when I create mocktails, the thing I always look forward and the thing I always try to pay extremely attention, it's the amount of water. Because the easiest way to extracting tea is with water. So when we create our mocktails, the water amount on our mocktail, it's already inside of our tea extraction. So any other ingredients, they should be waterless. So ingredients like maybe fat, like oils, or ingredients like pure juices, so much more concentrated. When I say concentrated, possibly not just bottled, but maybe self-centrifuge or presses. When I say presses, easily, rather than squeeze an orange, you can press an orange, so much more concentrated. So I'm always, in a way, afraid because it's a scary part of making mocktails. The water amount is from the tea extraction, Anything else, I always advise to use as less based ingredients as possible. So pure juices, pure oils, there is a recipe this year with a bitter aperitivo, non-alcoholic bitter aperitivo. So it's an ingredient that really support other spices, other bitterness, other sweetness. So I highly suggest just control the amount of water you're adding on it. So as a Twinings consultant, and I'm happily and likely to say for many years, where do I get my inspirations? Where inspiration comes from nothing or a lot. It's definitely something you work every day. So you can have a topic by magic. When I say by magic, maybe you looked at something and then you just get an inspiration, and slowly you build on top. But truly, I start from analyzing the main topic, which is Twinings. So I usually went through family history, brand history, location history. So I really go in deep in details. When I go and analyze details as deep as possible, I cannot lose the concentration to make it simple for who's receiving, this case, customers. Clear design, he needs to be understandable. So there are many things. I usually try to combine even a lifestyle where I'm going to get inspired, or where I'm going to execute or get the drinks done, the mocktails done. So there is always like a tree design. So from a history of the company, history of the location, history of the tea, analyze the tea, analyze the blend of the tea. So there are so many topics, and then I try to put it together. Once I put it together, it's basically a puzzle. There are so many pieces on your table. You have to build your skills to put them together. Your final product, your final mocktail, it should be balanced, not undertaking the tea flavor. So I always try to keep in mind I should announce what the tea flavor are, not actually adding other ingredients which will discard the tea, how it's composed. So all this complexity, then when the recipe is done, I try to work out even the glassware and vessel to give an extra experience, memory, but also try to help the final result of the drink. So I hope that helps. What's the most common ingredient? Definitely juices. Definitely it's juices, any kind of juices. When I say juices, because the fruits and juices are equally balanced between acidity. Some of them have more, some of them have less, and equally balanced of sweetness. And I think traditionally, when I see tea serves, there is always a sort of combination between sourness, many times it comes from a lemon, or sweetness, many times comes from just regular sugar. So I look a lot of time, at least one of the components are juice, a fruit juice.